Okay, let's get cracking.
I'm rolling.
You made Wayne Rooney your captain, Roy. Was that a difficult decision?
No, it wasn't a difficult decision. I understand that some people could see it as a controversial one, but having worked with him for 2 years and knowing how good he'd been in the environment, I thought it was the right moment for him, if you like, to take that step up when, of course, the previous leaders had retired on us.
You know, those previous leaders, the Gerrard, Lampard, etc. I suppose you knew they were going, or you must have had some sort of inkling that they were going. So how far before that had you decided that actually looking ahead, I think Wayne Rooney's my man? Yeah,
quite a long time ahead, really. I mean, I did know that. I knew that Frank was retiring and was going to go to America. I had a fairly good idea that Steve was going to follow him, although he was hedging his bets sort of before the World Cup and hadn't deliberately made up his mind until afterwards. So I had in my mind for quite a long time that, Wayne would be the man. But he really has surprised us, of course, with the way he's taken the job on.
Is he a natural leader?
Yeah, because the people lead in different ways, don't they? There are the vocal leaders, the ones that everyone can see quite clearly have got a lot to say and are very loud on the pitch. But there are a lot of other leaders on a football field, and I'm sure you've played with both types, that can lead in different ways. And I think where Wayne leads is by his example on the field of play, but also by the way he spends a lot of time with the players, going around with them. And we really feel that the principles of play that we like to work on, he's one of our main helpers in getting that message out and making certain that all of the players understand it.
A key role for the captain, of course, is that link between the manager and his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Has he surprised you in the way he's gone about that particular aspect of it?
Yes, I think he has. I mean, because he's a quiet man, basically, he's not one that screams and shouts, but he spends time, and I think that's more important than the screaming and the shouting or being the hail fellow well met.
How did you break the news to Wayne that he was to be your captain?
I think I did it over the telephone, actually, because it was we had to wait first of all until Steven Gerrard made his final decision. It was after the World Cup, and I was in America at the time when Steven got in touch with me. So my first call after saying to Steven, "Is there no chance of you changing your mind?" and him saying to me, "I'm sorry, this is the end." Mm-hmm. My first call was to Wayne then, and so I actually told him over the telephone.
Immediately after Gerrard?
Immediately after Steve. Well, if I remember correctly, it's a while ago now. I might have said, "Steve, do you want a couple more days to think about it?" It's possible. I'm not saying it was. I put the phone down to Stephen and picked the phone up to Wayne, but it was pretty close.
Yeah. And Wayne's reaction to the news?
Yeah, he was very happy. He said, "Well, I'm very." It wasn't a major surprise, was it? Because people were looking at our squad, and they were, there was plenty of opinions, as there always will be. But I think a large body of people wouldn't have been that surprised that Wayne was the one that I chose.
What are Wayne's great strengths on the field and off the field?
Let's take on the field first, because that's the one we can all relate to. I think it's his enormous professionalism on the field of play for the job that he's being asked to do. He's played in several positions. He's played in several positions even for me during my time as England manager. But that whatever job you give him, he's going to really try and do that job as you and the team want it to be done. And not all star players give you that. So as a star player, that's a great quality. I think his work rate is enormous. And of course, that's all linked to very, very good technique. I mean, he wouldn't be a star player if he didn't have fantastic technique. He's a very good technical player as a forward, and his goal record, of course, shows that, and the number of games he's had. But the things that I would say maybe aren't always so obvious to people are his professional attitude to whatever job he's asked to do, and his desire or his willingness to sacrifice himself as a star to do the job that the team needs, and his work rate, which is really quite enormous sometimes. I've never had a game where Wayne's come off the field and I've thought, you could have done more today, you didn't work hard enough.
Have you ever had the feeling that he's done too much? Because in his early days, people said he used to trap back into the corner flags, defending, tiring himself out, possibly for the other end of the pitch.
Not so much that, Gary, but there's been times in games where his desire to get involved in the game has brought him away from positions where we want him to be, really, where we think he'll do the most damage for us, because he's getting frustrated and not getting involved in the game. But I think that's a normal thing. If people didn't do that, it would be more surprising than when they do. So I think he's much wiser now as a player, and that wisdom as a player spills over also into the off the field side of things. He's much wiser there too, and that gives him a great platform, if you like, to speak to the other players and pass on that wisdom. And I think that's important, because the senior players can pass on our messages, or when I say ours, I mean mine and the team's. So sometimes they can pass on the messages better than we can as coaches, because they're much closer to the people. They've got a real affinity. They're playing against each other or with each other all the time, and that's our aim, to try and improve that side of things. And Wayne is a big help.
What's his weakness?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose his weaknesses people will be very quick to point out, and they'll probably be more to do with things have happened to him off the field where he's made mistakes in the past. I've got to say, fortunate for me, most of those have happened in the past. I haven't had to, deal with many of them or be a party to many of them. And as far as I'm concerned, the past is the past. I don't judge him on that. I'll only judge him off the field on things that happened during my watch. And as far as I'm concerned, he's put that behind him. When he was younger, there are probably things that have happened in his life he wouldn't have wanted to happen, but footballers are human beings. We have to remember that. Sometimes, especially in these days where punditry is becoming an even bigger form, if you like, of the game than it once was. The analysis of football through the punditry is becoming even greater, and to some extent we're reducing players to magnets on a board, and we're getting a little bit away from the fact that magnets on a board, they never lose and they never lose shape. But football players are human, and they do make mistakes, they do get tired, they do things they shouldn't do, and when you're in the trenches like I've always been, you're very much aware of that.
Where does Wayne Rooney rate in the great pantheon of English star footballers?
Do you know? I know that question's coming, of course. So it doesn't sort of surprise me. I just don't like to do that very much. I've got to say that I've been through a few generations in a long career, and I remember when I was younger having discussions with older people telling me that, well, you didn't see Dixie Dean, but he was the best player the world's ever seen, and you should have watched Stanley Matthews. And I don't doubt for 1 minute these are great players and were great players. I think people should just be great players in their era, and I don't think it's right to say, well, you're the better one, and you can't compare performances either, because if you watch a game from the 1950s and you compare it to a game, it would look very slow, and you think, oh, look how slow the game is. But of course we don't know if those guys have been growing up in it, they'd have been as fast as our guys are today. So I think Wayne should be satisfied if people are saying when he finishes his England career and his playing career, you were a really great player. You're worthy of mention.
Let me rephrase the question. One of the great England players of his time?
Well, again, it's open to so much debate, and what's more, how the forwards compare to goalkeepers and where the fullbacks come into the picture. Unfortunately, not many fullbacks are going to get a mention. You're not going to give me a headline here, Roy, are you? No,
I'm trying ever so hard.
Yeah.
Do you think he's still at his peak? Or do you think he's just gone over a little bit, maybe?
Well, possibly? I think sometimes that players, as they get older, they get their wisdom and their knowledge of the position and their knowledge of their bodies. I think that compensates for that youthful buzz that you get when you bring a young player in. So he's still got pace, he's still got his strength and his determination. So at the moment I see no reason why he can't keep playing, but I'm no expert on that subject. Sometimes all I know is that he's seen Giggs play to the age of 40 and he's seen Rio play to 34, 35, so I think he'll be wanting to get a few more years in yet.
Great.
Perfect. Okay,
Roy,
my pleasure.
Much appreciated.
Not at all.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming
and
up.
hope it goes well.